It was a cold evening when the town of Greyford grew silent. The streets were empty, the shops closed, and the last train had already left the station. Only the sound of the wind moved through the narrow alleys. In this lonely setting, a boy named Ethan stood under the old clock tower. His hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from the weight of a promise he had made. No one believed in him. Not his friends, not his family, and not even the people who had once trusted him. To them, Ethan was only a dreamer, someone who spoke too much but never acted. But tonight, under the fading light of the clock, he whispered to himself, "This time, I will not fail." The story of Ethan's promise began weeks earlier. It was at his school when he stood in front of his class and declared something bold. Everyone laughed. They called him a fool. They thought his words were nothing but another empty claim. Yet Ethan's eyes burned with a strange kind of fire. Nobody knew why, and nobody cared. The promise was not simple. It was something that seemed impossible. That was why no one believed him. Even his closest friend, Daniel, had placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Ethan, stop dreaming. You can't do this. People like us, we don't change anything." But Ethan only smiled. "Watch me," he said softly. From that day, he carried the weight of doubt on his back. Whenever he walked through the hallways, whispers followed him. People mocked, some even challenged him, daring him to prove his words. Ethan remained silent. He was not ready to explain. Not yet. What made his promise so unusual was the silence around it. He had told the world what he would do, but he never revealed how. That mystery created rumors. Some thought he was lying. Some thought he was crazy. Others simply ignored him. But Ethan knew one thing: the moment would come when everyone would see the truth. The nights grew longer, and Ethan spent them alone in his small room. Papers scattered on the desk, books opened, and maps drawn by hand. He was planning something. Something far bigger than his small world. Every tick of the clock reminded him of the promise. Every sunrise brought him closer to the moment. He often stared at the mirror. "Will they ever understand?" he whispered to his reflection. His own eyes seemed to doubt him. But then he would clench his fist and remind himself, "I made a promise. A promise I cannot break." One night, as the rain tapped against his window, Ethan heard footsteps outside. Curious, he pulled the curtain aside. A shadow stood across the street, watching his house. The figure did not move for a long time. Ethan's heart pounded. Could it be someone who knew? Someone who guessed his plan? He turned away, but when he looked again, the shadow was gone. That night he could not sleep. The promise he had made was no longer only his secret. Someone else had taken interest. Someone was watching. The next morning, he returned to school. His classmates greeted him with the same cold laughter. "Hey, Ethan," one of them shouted, "when will your big promise happen? Or are you still dreaming?" The class erupted with laughter. Ethan kept walking, his face calm, but inside his heart was burning. Daniel caught up with him. "Why do you keep quiet, Ethan? Why don't you just forget it? You're only hurting yourself." Ethan paused, looking out the window at the grey sky. "Because I gave my word. A word is stronger than doubt. Stronger than fear. If I break it, I break myself." Daniel sighed. He could not understand. Nobody could. But what they did not know was that the day of truth was approaching. That evening, Ethan walked to the old abandoned railway station on the edge of town. The place was silent, broken, and forgotten. Yet in the middle of the darkness, Ethan set down a small notebook. Inside it were pages filled with dates, symbols, and strange instructions. This was his secret plan. The key to the promise. The wind howled through the broken windows as Ethan whispered, "It begins here." For a moment, he thought he heard movement again, someone else nearby. He froze, his eyes scanning the shadows. The station was empty, but his heart told him otherwise. He picked up the notebook quickly and left. The promise had started to grow beyond him. The silence around it was breaking. People were watching, waiting, doubting. But Ethan was ready. He walked back under the old clock tower, where the night was darker than ever. The sound of the ticking clock echoed in his ears. His voice was low, but firm. "No one believes me," he said. "But soon, they will." And with that, Ethan disappeared into the night, carrying his secret with him, leaving the world to wonder what kind of promise could hold so much power and so much danger. Days passed, but the whispers about Ethan's promise only grew louder. At school, the laughter had turned into cruel jokes. In the streets, people shook their heads when his name was mentioned. Even at home, silence from his parents told him everything. Nobody trusted him. Nobody believed. But Ethan carried the fire inside him. Every night he returned to the abandoned railway station, notebook in hand. The pages now had new marks, arrows, circles, and short sentences written in hurried lines. To anyone else, they looked meaningless. But to Ethan, they were steps toward the promise. Yet, he was not alone. Each time he walked through the quiet streets at night, he felt the same sensation, the sense of being followed. A faint sound of footsteps, a shadow on the corner, the flicker of movement in the dark. He never saw a face, but he knew. Someone was watching him closely. One evening, Daniel appeared at his door. His face looked tired, his voice sharp. "Ethan, you need to stop this. Everyone is talking about you. They say you've lost your mind." Ethan did not reply. He only stared at the notebook resting on his desk. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "What is this promise, Ethan? Why won't you tell me? You're my friend. At least trust me." Ethan looked up, his face calm but serious. "It's not time yet. If I tell you now, it will sound like another dream. But when the moment comes, you will see." Daniel shook his head. "You're scaring me. If you're hiding something dangerous, I can't stand by." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then wait. And judge me after." But after Daniel left, Ethan's heart grew heavy. He wanted to share the truth, to explain the meaning of his words. Yet the risk was too high. If the wrong person learned the plan too early, everything would fail. That night, the shadow returned. Ethan left the railway station later than usual, the notebook pressed tightly against his chest. As he crossed the empty street, he heard it, slow, steady steps behind him. He turned quickly. Nothing. Only the silent lamp posts stretching into the darkness. He walked faster. The steps followed. His breath grew heavier, but his mind stayed sharp. At the corner of the street, he suddenly stopped and spun around. For just a second, he saw it, a figure dressed in black, standing still. Then, like smoke, it disappeared into the dark. Ethan's heart pounded. Whoever it was, they were real. And they wanted something. The next morning, the town was alive with gossip. A girl from Ethan's class whispered loudly, "Maybe Ethan's planning to run away. Maybe his promise is to disappear forever." Laughter followed, but Ethan ignored them. He had no time for their games. The shadow behind him was not a joke. At lunch, Daniel sat beside him again. His tone was softer this time. "Ethan, if you're in trouble, let me help you. I don't care about the others. Just tell me what's going on." Ethan looked into his friend's eyes. For a brief moment, he thought of telling him everything. But then, from the corner of the cafeteria, he noticed it, the same dark figure watching him through the window. His words froze. Instead, he whispered, "Trust me, Daniel. When the time comes, you'll know." The bell rang, and Ethan left the school. That evening, he returned to the railway station again. This time, he locked the notebook inside an old metal box and hid it beneath a pile of broken wood. He whispered to himself, "If they find me, they cannot find this." But as he walked away, a voice echoed in the empty station. A low, chilling voice. "You cannot hide forever." Ethan froze. His eyes scanned the darkness. "Who's there?" he shouted, but no one answered. Only silence. Only the cold wind. The fear inside him grew, but so did his determination. If the shadow wanted to stop him, it meant the promise was more important than he had imagined. Someone knew. Someone was afraid of what he was about to do. That night, under the clock tower again, Ethan whispered the same words. "No one believes me. But soon, they will." Only this time, he added a second line. "And when they know, it will already be too late for them to stop me." The night after the chilling voice echoed in the railway station, Ethan could not sleep. His mind kept replaying the words, "You cannot hide forever." Who had spoken them? The shadow? Or was it only his imagination? But deep inside, Ethan knew the truth. Someone was close. Someone dangerous. The next day, he went to school with tired eyes but a steady heart. Whispers still followed him, but he ignored them. He had something bigger to think about. The promise was no longer just about proving himself, it was now a matter of survival. Daniel sat next to him again. His face was pale, as if he had seen something. "Ethan," he said in a low voice, "I need to tell you something. Last night, I saw someone standing outside your house. A tall figure. They didn't move. Just stood there." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. So it was true. The shadow wasn't only in his mind. "What did you do?" Ethan asked. "Nothing," Daniel replied. "I got scared and ran." But Ethan, whoever it was, they weren't normal. They looked wrong. Ethan looked away, his voice quiet. "They're after me. And after what I carry." Daniel frowned. "What do you carry? Tell me, Ethan." Ethan hesitated, then reached into his bag. Slowly, he pulled out the notebook, the one filled with strange drawings and codes. He flipped it open to a single page. Daniel's eyes widened. On the page was a map of the town, drawn with careful detail. Certain locations were marked with red circles: the railway station, the clock tower, and the school. But in the middle of the page was the largest circle of all, an abandoned factory on the edge of Greyford. "What is this?" Daniel whispered. "This," Ethan said, "is the key to my promise." Daniel shook his head. "Ethan, this looks dangerous. Why are these places marked?" Ethan leaned closer, his voice firm. "Because something hidden lies in one of them. Something everyone forgot. But I found it. And when I reveal it, they will understand why I made the promise." Before Daniel could reply, the classroom door opened. A man stood there. Not a teacher. Not a student. A stranger in a long black coat. His eyes scanned the room. For a brief second, they landed on Ethan. A faint smile touched his lips before he turned and walked away. Ethan's blood ran cold. The shadow was no longer hiding. That evening, Ethan and Daniel went together to the railway station. The place was dark, the broken windows letting in only slivers of moonlight. Ethan led Daniel to the pile of wood where he had hidden the metal box. With shaky hands, he pulled it out. Inside lay the notebook and a small key made of rusted silver. Daniel's voice trembled. "What is that key for?" Ethan looked at him with steady eyes. "The factory." Before Daniel could ask more, footsteps echoed across the station. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. Both boys froze. The sound grew closer, each step echoing like thunder. Ethan grabbed Daniel's arm. "Hide," he whispered. They crouched behind the broken benches, their hearts racing. From the shadows emerged the figure in black. The same man who had appeared at the school. His face was partly hidden beneath a wide hat, but his eyes glowed faintly in the dark. He walked slowly to the center of the station, stopping exactly where Ethan had stood the night before. "I know you're here," the man said, his voice low but sharp. "You cannot hide from me, Ethan." Daniel's eyes widened. "He knows your name." Ethan pressed a finger to his lips, signaling Daniel to stay quiet. But the man continued. "The promise you made, it does not belong to you. It belongs to us. Give me the notebook, and perhaps I will let you walk away." Silence. Ethan's grip on the metal box tightened. The man turned, scanning the shadows. For a brief second, his eyes landed directly where Ethan and Daniel were hiding. His lips curved into a smile. "Very well," he said. "Keep your secret for now. But remember, every promise has a price." And with that, he vanished into the darkness, as if swallowed by the night itself. Daniel gasped. "Ethan, who was that? How does he know about your promise?" Ethan's voice was cold, steady. "I don't know who he is. But I know this, if he wants the notebook, then I must protect it at all costs. The promise depends on it." Daniel shook his head in disbelief. You're playing with something far bigger than us. What if you can't control it? Ethan stood tall, his eyes fixed on the distant factory that loomed in his mind. I don't need to control it. I only need to finish what I started. And when I do, no one will ever laugh again. As they left the railway station, the night seemed heavier than before. Every corner held a shadow. Every sound felt like a warning. Yet Ethan walked forward, clutching the key, his steps firm. The promise was no longer just a secret. It was a battle. And it had already begun. The next night, the air in Greyford felt heavier, as if the entire town was holding its breath. Ethan and Daniel stood at the edge of the old industrial area, where the abandoned factory rose like a giant skeleton against the moonlight. Its broken windows looked like dark, hollow eyes staring back at them. Daniel hesitated. Ethan, are you sure about this? That man, he knew your name. He wants the notebook. What if this place is a trap? Ethan's grip on the silver key tightened. If he wants to stop me, it means I'm on the right path. The promise is inside. I can feel it. The gates of the factory were chained shut, rust eating away at the metal. Ethan slid the key into the lock, and with a sharp click, the chains fell loose. The sound echoed in the silence, making Daniel flinch. They pushed the heavy doors open, and the smell of dust and iron hit them. The inside was massive, filled with shadows and broken machines. The ceiling creaked with the weight of time. Each step they took stirred clouds of dust, their footsteps echoing across the hollow hall. Why here? Daniel whispered. Ethan pointed to the notebook. Look. This factory was marked in the center of the map. This is where it all connects. As they moved deeper, the air grew colder. In the center of the hall stood a massive iron vault, bolted into the ground. Strange symbols were scratched across its surface, symbols that matched the ones Ethan had drawn in his notebook. Daniel's mouth went dry. What is this? Ethan's eyes glowed with determination. This is the reason for my promise. I swore I would open this vault. I swore I would bring out what's inside. Daniel stepped back. Ethan, this doesn't look right. What if it's dangerous? Ethan placed the silver key into the lock of the vault. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a grinding sound, the vault shuddered. The air filled with a strange vibration, as if the walls themselves were alive. The lock clicked open. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from above. Daniel looked up and froze. On the upper balcony of the factory, the man in black stood, his eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. I warned you, Ethan, the man's voice thundered. The promise is not yours to keep. Ethan pulled the vault door open with all his strength. Inside was not treasure, nor gold, but a small black box. It looked old, older than the factory itself, its surface marked with the same strange symbols. Daniel whispered, terrified, Ethan, put it back. This is wrong. But Ethan lifted the box, holding it close. This is it. This is what I promised to reveal. The man in black leapt from the balcony, landing on the factory floor with unnatural grace. His presence filled the room like a storm. You don't understand what you carry, boy. That box was sealed for a reason. Ethan stepped back, clutching the box to his chest. If it was meant to stay hidden, why does it call to me? Why did I find the map? This promise is mine. Daniel grabbed Ethan's arm, his voice desperate. Listen to him, Ethan. You don't know what's inside. But Ethan's eyes burned with the same fire as the night he made his promise. No one believed me, Daniel. No one. But when I open this box, they will finally see the truth. The man in black's voice grew darker. And when you open it, you will bring the end of everything you know. Before Ethan could respond, the factory doors slammed open. Dozens of footsteps rushed inside, people from the town, drawn by rumors of Ethan's secret. Teachers, classmates, even strangers filled the space, their faces lit with curiosity and fear. There he is, someone shouted. The boy who made the promise. All eyes turned to Ethan. He stood in the center of the factory, the black box in his hands, the man in black beside him like a shadow of death. Daniel's heart raced. Ethan, everyone is here. Don't do this. But Ethan raised the box high. His voice echoed through the hall. This is the promise I made. And I will keep it, no matter the cost. The crowd gasped. Some shouted for him to stop. Others cheered, eager to see what would happen. The man in black stepped closer, his hand outstretched. You still have a choice, Ethan. Give me the box. Save them all. Ethan's hands trembled. For the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. He looked at Daniel, at the crowd, at the man in black. The weight of his promise pressed on him like a mountain. And then, with a sudden, defiant breath, he whispered, No. The black box clicked open. A blinding light exploded from within, filling the factory. The walls shook, the machines groaned, and the people screamed as shadows twisted and stretched across the room. Daniel shielded his eyes, but even through the light, he saw something moving inside the box. Something alive. The promise had been kept. But at what cost? The light from the black box was blinding. It poured out like a flood, swallowing the factory in a glow that burned against the eyes and hearts of everyone inside. The crowd screamed, stumbling backward, shielding their faces. Metal beams rattled, and glass shattered from the force of the light. Ethan stood in the center, frozen. The box in his hands felt alive, beating like a heart, pulsing with something ancient. He wanted to drop it, to let it go, but at the same time, he couldn't. It clung to him, as if it had chosen him. Daniel's voice pierced through the chaos. Ethan, close it. Please, close it before it's too late. But it was already too late. From inside the box came a sound, low, deep, and unnatural. It was not a voice, not a word, but something that crawled into the mind and twisted it. The people in the crowd clutched their heads, some crying, some collapsing to their knees. The man in black, however, only smiled. Yes, he whispered, his eyes glowing brighter. It awakens. Ethan's knees buckled under the weight of the sound. His vision blurred, but through the haze he saw shapes moving in the light. Shadows, yet not shadows. Figures without form. They slithered, they reached, they breathed. One of them brushed against Daniel's shoulder, and he screamed, stumbling back. Ethan! Daniel shouted. It's alive. Whatever this is, it's not human. The crowd panicked. Some ran for the doors, but the factory gates slammed shut with a violent crash, as if unseen hands had locked them inside. The air grew heavier, colder. The man in black stepped closer, his coat rippling though there was no wind. Do you see now, Ethan? Do you see what you've brought back? This power was sealed away long before you were born. And you have broken the seal. Ethan's voice cracked, trembling with fear and defiance. I only wanted to prove them wrong. I wanted to show them I could keep my promise. The man in black laughed, a chilling, hollow laugh that echoed through the factory. And you have. But promises have consequences. One of the shadowy figures lunged from the light, slamming into the floor. The ground cracked, and the people screamed louder. The figure rose, stretching itself into a monstrous shape, tall and thin with eyes like burning coals. It turned its head toward Ethan, as if recognizing him. Daniel grabbed Ethan's arm, pulling him back. We have to run. But Ethan shook his head. No. This is my promise. I can't run from it. The shadow creature let out a sound, half roar, half whisper, that shook the walls. Several people fainted instantly, collapsing on the ground. Others pounded on the doors, desperate to escape. But the monster ignored them. Its burning eyes locked only on Ethan. The man in black raised his hand. The creature froze, as if obeying him. This power is mine to command. And now, Ethan, you will give me the box. Ethan's heart pounded. He finally understood. The promise he made wasn't just about proving himself. The box had been waiting for someone to open it. Waiting for him. No, Ethan said, clutching the box tighter. If you wanted it, you would have taken it long ago. But you couldn't. Only I could open it. That means it belongs to me. The man's smile faded. His eyes grew darker. Then you have chosen your fate. The monster moved again, stepping closer, each thundering footstep shaking the ground. Daniel pulled Ethan back with all his strength. Ethan, Listen to me. You don't have to keep this promise anymore. This isn't what you wanted. But Ethan's eyes burned with the same fire as always. I made a promise, Daniel. And I will see it through to the end. The monster lunged. Daniel shoved Ethan aside just in time. The creature's hand slammed into the ground where Ethan had been standing, leaving a crater in the concrete floor. Dust and debris filled the air. Chaos erupted. People screamed and scattered, some hiding behind machines, others desperately clawing at the sealed doors. The shadow figures multiplied, slithering out of the light one by one, their whispers filling the factory like 1,000 voices. Ethan staggered to his feet, coughing. The box pulsed in his hands, its glow brighter than ever. He realized something. Each time the box pulsed, the shadows grew stronger. Daniel shouted, "Then stop it. Close the box before it destroys everything." Ethan's hands shook. His promise had been to open the box, to prove himself. He had done that. But now, was the true test whether he had the strength to end it? The man in black stepped closer, his voice like thunder. "You can't close it, boy. Once a promise is broken open, it cannot be undone." But Ethan, with trembling determination, whispered, "Watch me." He pressed his hands against the box, trying to shut it. The light fought back, the whispers screamed louder, the shadows thrashed in fury. His arms burned, his chest felt like it would explode. The man in black roared, "You'll kill yourself." Daniel ran to his side, grabbing Ethan's hands. "You're not alone. If you can't do it alone, then I'll help you." Together, they pushed. The light flared, the factory walls shook, and the shadow monsters shrieked in rage. The crowd huddled together, watching in terror and awe. The box resisted with all its might. But slowly, painfully, the lid began to close. Inch by inch. The whispers turned into screams, then into silence. The monsters howled, their bodies twisting, fading back into the light. And then, click. The box shut. Darkness fell over the factory. Silence replaced the chaos. The people trembled, looking around in disbelief. The monsters were gone. Only the faint sound of dripping water echoed through the hall. Ethan collapsed to his knees, the box still in his hands. Daniel fell beside him, gasping for air. The man in black stood frozen. His face twisted with fury. "This is not the end. You have sealed it again, but it will not last. One day, it will call for you again. And you will answer." His body dissolved into the shadows, vanishing from sight. The people stared at Ethan in silence. For the first time, no one laughed. No one doubted. They had seen the truth. Ethan looked down at the box, his voice barely a whisper. "I kept my promise. But at what cost?" The silence in the factory felt heavier than the chaos that had come before. The crowd stood frozen, their faces pale, their eyes wide with fear and disbelief. No one dared to speak. All eyes were on Ethan, the boy who had opened the box, unleashed the shadows, and then closed it again. He sat on the cracked floor, the black box still in his hands. Its surface no longer glowed, but it pulsed faintly, like a sleeping heart. Ethan's chest rose and fell with exhaustion. His arms trembled. Sweat dripped from his forehead. Daniel knelt beside him, his hand on Ethan's shoulder. "It's over, right? Please tell me it's over." Ethan shook his head slowly. His voice was quiet, almost broken. "No. It's not over. This box is alive. It's waiting. It wants to be opened again." Daniel swallowed hard. "Then we destroy it. Right now." Ethan stared at the box, his reflection shimmering on its black surface. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he whispered, "I don't think it can be destroyed. It chose me. That's why I was able to open it. That's why the man in black couldn't." The crowd began to murmur, their fear mixing with anger. One man shouted, "You've cursed us. You brought this evil here." Another voice rose, "He saved us. If it wasn't for him, we'd all be dead." The arguments grew louder, the people divided, some blaming Ethan, others defending him. But Ethan didn't listen. His eyes were locked on the box, his mind spinning. The promise had been kept. Everyone now knew he was not a dreamer, not a liar. But the price was heavier than he had imagined. Suddenly, a cold wind blew through the broken windows. The people fell silent, shivering. Ethan looked up and saw it, the faint shadow of the man in black, standing at the far end of the hall. His voice echoed, though his body was only a blur. You think you have won, boy. But promises are chains. You will carry this one until the end of your life. The box belongs to you now. And one day, it will open again. The shadow dissolved into the darkness, leaving behind only the echo of his words. Daniel clenched his fists. We can't let him be right. We need to lock it away somewhere far, somewhere no one can find it. Ethan stood slowly, gripping the box with both hands. His legs felt weak, but his eyes burned with quiet resolve. He turned to the crowd. I made a promise. And I kept it. But now, I must make another. The people fell silent, waiting. Ethan raised the box slightly. This box cannot stay here. If anyone else finds it, if anyone else opens it, the shadows will return. So I promise you this, I will take it far away, beyond this town, beyond anyone's reach. I will carry it, guard it, and never let it fall into the wrong hands. The crowd murmured again. Some nodded in respect. Others whispered in fear. But none laughed this time. Daniel's voice shook. Ethan, if you do this, you'll never be free. You'll live your whole life carrying this burden. Ethan managed a faint smile. That's the price of a promise. To keep it, even when it costs everything. Daniel's eyes watered, but he nodded. Then I'll go with you. You won't face this alone. Ethan's heart tightened. He wanted to accept, but he knew the truth. No, Daniel. You've already risked your life for me. This path is mine alone. Daniel grabbed his arm. I'm your friend. Don't push me away now. Ethan looked at him, his voice heavy with emotion. Because you are my friend, I must protect you. If the box calls again, if it awakens, I can't let it take you too. Daniel's grip loosened. His voice broke. Then promise me one thing. Promise me you won't let it destroy you. Ethan nodded slowly. I promise. With that, he turned toward the factory doors. The chains that had locked them before now hung loose, broken. He stepped out into the cold night air, the box clutched tightly in his hands. The moon shone above, casting his shadow long across the empty streets. Behind him, the town of Greyford would never forget what they had seen. Some would call him cursed. Some would call him a hero. But all would remember the boy who made a promise no one believed, and kept it. As Ethan walked into the darkness, his voice was low, carried only by the wind. No one believed me. But I believed in myself. And that is enough. The night swallowed him, and with it, the black box, the secret, the danger, the burden of a promise that would never end.